Hello and welcome to Is This England, a show where we talk about old England games and ask just how England was this.
Today, it's part one of an Italian double bill. World Cup qualification hangs in the balance as Glenn Hoddle's England host Italy, and an unusual name starts for the Three Lions.
You may be a stranger, that's what time can do. Baby, you mean everything to me.
Welcome to the show, listener. Nick, how's it going?
I'm very good, mate. Yourself?
Oh yeah, I'm very good. We've just been doing some World Cup admin. So just a little reminder that that's around the corner.
Yeah, just can't let us forget the World Cup is coming still. We didn't get anything in the summer really that was nice.
And a little announcement, we are being flown over there by the Qatar royal family. How's about that? They've listened to the show, they love it.
Absolutely love it, don't they? Yeah, we mentioned the women's game. They weren't that happy.
Listeners, if you want to get in touch with the show, you can at isthisenglandpod@gmail.com or follow us on social media at isthis_England. Please leave us 5-star reviews, etc., etc., etc. Give us all the love and it'll help us get primed for a successful World Cup because the Qatari royal family are expecting big things, expecting numbers.
Yep, and if we don't bring them in, who knows what's going to happen.
Didn't want my hands anyway. Next. Right then. The year is 1997. As Nick mentioned, we're looking at a World Cup qualifier against Italy. The year is 1997, as I just said, and the time capsule pick I'm going with is Be Here Now. I haven't listened to it for a long time, so I didn't make any notes on it. I thought, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing a Twitter thread quite recently that went, how long ago would that have been? 25 years?
I think so. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
it would have been.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like 25 years ago today, Oasis released a album that was critically adored. Then the fans didn't like it. And now looking back, it's a perfect album. And I went, that's mental. No matter what you think of it, you can't say it's a perfect album. No. What do you think of it all these years after?
I think the same as you and a lot of Oasis fans, really. It's got great stuff on it. The songs are brilliant. It's just massively overproduced. It's far too long. And it's just the sound of, what do they say? Oh, it's just the sound of 5 lads getting on it, fueled by drugs or whatever. And it's like, yeah, but someone should have been in there just going, all right, just can we not have 19 guitar like over this, please? Just calm it down a bit. This has got to be listenable.
There was definitely listenable in parts. I mean, it came after Definitely Maybe and What's the Story, Morning Glory, which kind of defined a generation to some extent.
Yeah,
I think music in general was much more of a thing of I belong to this tribe or I belong to that tribe back in the 90s compared to now when it's the way to just be all over the board and listening to 1920s jazz in one breath and then grime in the next because it's all there.
You know what I've recently discovered? I hate it when there's someone you talk to, it's usually at work or just someone you bump into at some point, you don't really know them, and they're like, oh, do you like music? Oh, I'm into my music.
Yeah.
Like it's like their car or something. I'm into my music. This could go anywhere, this.
Jen says that a lot about me to wind me up. Oh, he loves his music. Yeah, it's all Be Here Now sold over 400,000 copies on its first day. That's another signifier of the time, isn't it?
Yeah.
What a sheer volume of sales.
And like successful albums these days, I know streaming numbers kind of like bends that, but if you did like a couple of million copies, that is incredible. And I think Noel Gallagher said it was like, because it's one of the highest selling Oasis albums within like the first year. It may even be that, but I think he said it was like something like the £7 million flop.
Yeah, it was probably a critical flop over time, and I guess it just coincided with the fact that the world had kind of had the fill of that. I don't think they could have put out any album that would have kept them as popular, and kind of been. I think you had to either keep your popularity to some extent or shed quite a lot of fans and get the more sort of credible angle, which bands like the Arctic Monkeys have gone for when they regularly go, here's what we're doing, we've lost X amount of fans along the way, but that's good. So we can continue to do this.
Where's everyone gone?
Where's everyone gone? Yeah, a 70-minute record. Be Here Now. Which
Too much.
It is too much, isn't it?
Yeah,
and it's 70 minutes.
45, 40 is almost like a perfect.
Yeah, but there's no dynamics to it either. It's 70 minutes full on.
Yeah.
Like full on, as you say, about 14 million guitar tracks. Noel Gallagher looks back in 2007 and said that as they entered the sessions for Be Here Now, Oasis were the biggest band in the world, bigger than, dare I say it, God.
Oh, he's gone God. Oh my word.
Bigger than God.
I mean, that is, I know he tries to distance himself from the Beatles comparisons, but you've gone one up there from Jesus, haven't you?
Yeah, there was a Tim's Twitter listening party to Be Here Now.
Yeah.
A lot of people there saying monumentally underrated album. Be Here Now deserves so much love. Hating Be Here Now is a hate crime, I'm telling you. Being laughed out of the practice room for a few times for my support of Be Here Now. Stand by the fact it's a fucking belter of an album. Tim Burgess himself said, don't go away. Anyone think they might cry during this? It kind of hits you right in the heart. Liam's delivery is fire. Liam's voice is class on this entire album. I am so in love with Liam's voice. I think it was the peak of his voice, I've got to say. That
Yeah.
If you watch the tour from around this time, that's the peak of the band as well, really.
Yeah, and I think they'd brought in all these songs and live they probably sounded great as well, but you had the problem of you've got to keep a audience entertained when you're doing like a 7-minute song.
Yeah.
And unless it's, like you say, like a big jazz thing or whatever, there's very few songs that you can keep people coming back for and keeping them entertained and engaged at a gig live, really, which is where they made their big sound and almost like snappy, catchy, big rock songs almost with that too.
Yeah, and they were it ticked all the boxes. It just didn't connect in the way that the other albums had.
Wasn't it the fact that the journalists in general, What's the Story came out and they kind of went, well, this isn't very good, is it? Like they got burned on that, and then everyone in the world went, oh, I've got that album. And then so when this one came out, I think everyone was very like, we've just got to praise this because we're going to look like dickheads. And in reality, they shouldn't have praised it as much, but I don't really know where it sits with me. I think I love it, but I'm probably in a minority to the general public.
Oh yeah.
But at the same time, if you strip all the way let's call it the silliness around the 7-minute long songs, even though, do you know what I mean? Don't change a thing about it.
No, you keep that one.
But everything else, almost maybe all around the world, you cut that down a bit. But everything else, I'd say, when Noel plays those songs on his own, they're like, okay, they are undeniably brilliant.
Yeah, to me, it's just a symbol of that they didn't really go anywhere musically, and I kind of love them for it now, because what would be the point in them changing the stripes now?
Yeah,
but yeah, that was kind of a chance to really go. We are one of the greatest rock bands of all time, and a creative aspect, and not just like commercially. I think they're the last big rock stars, and certainly that level of popularity of a band, you know, to play gigs like Nebworth and what have you. But really, they can't, in my opinion, hold a candle to the likes of like Led Zeppelin or you know, I wouldn't say Queen, but obviously the Beatles and stuff like that. And just they had more range to the music. I think this kind of showed that Oasis really, really didn't. Even Radiohead and The Verve.
Well, I think Radiohead last time, I think I put OK Computer in, and that was kind of the other side of 1997, where actually everyone's on a come down. This is like the last big blowout almost. And is it because Noel had already got all those songs written years ago? Well, why am I going to change them? I'm just going to use these songs. And then when the well was dry, it was like, shit, what am I going to write now?
Yeah.
And that's kind of when the next album is this big depressive, what the hell are they done? And they went a different direction, and everyone went, well, I don't like that.
Yeah. Even that wasn't drastic, but it was a nice different direction. Do you think they should have had a break after What's the Story? Maybe a few years?
Well, I think it was after Nebworth, wasn't it? And I think they previewed maybe one song at Nebworth from this, and they just went, we should have just disappeared for a couple of years and then vanished and then come back, you know, massive, which is what I guess not a lot of artists do that really these days. Like I saw that Muse got another album out, and it's just like, okay, is that new? Is that recent? Is that whatever? Like who knows?
Red Hot Chili Peppers are putting 2 albums out this year.
This is what I mean. Like bands don't really disappear like you mentioned Arctics do, but there's not many others that go, okay, we're done for a couple of years, because there's always that pull of you've got to bring something back. And I guess big artists these days, do they release big albums. They're almost like EPs and singles and collabs and
Yeah.
things like that, and all this other stuff I don't understand about younger people's music. So
Yeah, maybe it was just one too many people listened to it and had a heart attack.
yeah,
It's definitely the bad end of drugs.
yeah, for the various reasons they had heart attacks, didn't they?
Anyway, we're going to move forward then. I got my time capsule this week.
Mm-hmm.
Nick will have his next week.
Yeah.
But can you explain to us why we picked today's game and I guess the two overall?
Yeah. So we loved watching England v Italy in Le Tournoi, which also took place this year. And we both said we were really impressed with England at that point, and they were kind of a bit of a side we hadn't seen before. So we wanted to go, okay, well, let's see the big moments of the start of the Hoddle era, really. And we're going to go into a little bit about his appointment and all this other kind of stuff as well now. But kind of increasing our sample size, because I'm always told, oh, actually, this was a brilliant World Cup and it's a brilliant Hoddle team. So I was like, okay, well, was it really? Like, you look at some of the names and you go, yeah, I know what they were.
Yeah.
Were they that impressive?
I know what they were.
Yeah, I know what the names were. I know who Stuart Pearce is and David Beckham and all this other kind of stuff. Well, like, what did they have a style about them? Did they try and...
Well, it seemed from the Le
change things?
Tournoi that they really did have a style
Yeah.
about them, which is why we come back. But that was quite an experimental side in a non-competitive game.
Yeah.
Some might call it.
Wrong.
I mean, yeah,
People were
wrong.
wrong.
Some idiots might call it a non-competitive game, but this is a World Cup qualifying sort of double header. And for the purposes of time, again, we'll look at the state of football in the second of this two-legged beast, seeing as though we want to cover the appointment of Glenn Hoddle and I guess the downfall / maybe not downfall, but the departure of Terry Venables.
It's a scandal.
It's a scandal. We love a scandal. Was it? No, it doesn't matter. Was it a singing scandal?
Not yet.
No, not yet.
Not quite yet. We're still we're almost going into now the end of the Venables era. We've still just missed really talking about him. So
Yeah.
he's just always popping his head into the podcast, isn't he? It's like, is it my turn yet?
He's like an Easter egg, or just one of those characters where, like Phyllis in the US Office, where they're
Yeah.
like, we didn't really have a role for her, but everyone liked her, so we
Yeah.
ended up writing her into the show. It's just like fans respond to the Venables, and at some point he's going to get a run. But here he is saying goodbye before he's even said hello.
I know, yeah. He's gone. So we are kind of starting this with the appointing of Mr. Glenn Hoddle.
Yeah, and it's probably the best time we'll get to talk about this appointment. Obviously, we have to kind of do a balancing act with, well, if we jump into a manager's career halfway through, then what are we going to say about the earlier games and how they got into the job? Jimmy Armfield was the FA's consultant tasked with replacing the outgoing Terry Venables, which obviously led to the appointment of Hoddle. Why did the FA need a consultant, and what qualifications does that man need?
Just burn through money, I'm guessing. They just go, right, we need someone else to do this because we're far too busy. You know, I've recently hosted Euro 96.
But they're just like, we need somebody to manage England at football. So they've got to be English,
Yeah.
and they've got to be a football manager, and they've got to be good. We don't know where to find them. And he's thinking maybe the top division in England, Football League, might be good.
I think I know. Pay me lots of
Yeah.
money to take a look for
Yeah,
you.
I have research and I have contacts, and pay me lots of money and I'll have a look. So he did, Mr. Armfield. He did have a look. We'll get into Venables' his tenure a bit more, but the search was on, and the first person that he would turn to was Kevin Keegan.
Kevin Keegan already getting a little look in there, isn't he?
Absolutely. So why it seems logical. I know we'd end up getting Keegan in, but why didn't we get him in at this point?
Well, Armfield had spoken with Keegan about the position, but he said he was not interested. He was happy at Newcastle at that point. This comes on the back of Euro 96 hasn't actually happened yet. So it had been said that Venables was leaving the position after he was in a big scandal, essentially suing and being sued Alan Sugar by the Sugar himself. So yeah, amid all this chaos, knowing that World Cup qualification was going to come up after the Euros, they said, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't be around, and the team should instead just look to try and qualify so he would step aside.
Right then, it's getting complex now. So Venables was Spurs manager, then England manager.
Yes.
Okay, so, and then when he was England manager, he'd upset big shugs.
Yeah, he was in a high court battle to have Alan Sugar's company, I think it's Eden Note, wound up, basically. There's a whole big thing where he's also a director at Spurs at the time, and it's just absolutely mental. Again, we'll look at that when we look at a full Venables tenure.
I was going to say, what could a company have done to Venables?
I think it's Sugar, maybe, just being involved.
Go after Sugar himself.
He was the owner of Spurs as well at the time.
Yeah. But then he's gone for some side company to get at him.
Yeah.
Maybe he just insulates himself with companies. It's like, you can never sue me. You can only sue companies that I own. So it's all kicking off and they've gone to Keegan, but he's happy at Newcastle.
He's happy at Newcastle at this point because they're still going. I think this is when they're still going for the league with Man United.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just slightly after that. And he thinks, you know what, maybe we can go again with some new signings and see what that brings. But it wouldn't be long until Keegan was actually resigned from Newcastle a little while later.
He actually resigns a month before this game that we're covering today. He resigned. He was happy in 1996, but January the 7th, 1997, he'd gone.
It's just crazy, isn't it? It was just kind of like he was so in it. I think that year as well, they'd beaten Man United 5-0 at St James's. They'd signed Shearer. They'd got Ferdinand up front with all these other players. And you think, well, is this the time then? But maybe they just missed their lovely point there and the chance to actually win the league. And to go again, as we've seen so many times, is just so difficult.
Yeah, the timing isn't right, no doubt. But looking back, we had Keegan, but very much like his team, it was just a bit past what you could consider his best.
And I think as well, what Venables had is he had a team of English players who were kind of at their best as well. Like a lot of people are at their peak. We look at this point now, England have got a lot of successful players, but they've also got a lot of young players coming in. So what Keegan could have done with that, we're not really sure. But at the same time, it would take a manager to go, okay, well, who else is on the list? If Keegan's out, who are we going to go for? And one of them was Jerry Francis.
Yeah. Just doesn't seem like it would ever happen, does it?
It looks like he has been managing Wimbledon for about 19 years, doesn't he? Like, I can't believe he was a Spurs manager as well around this point. And you just think, really, he was in the conversation?
So anyone listening who's thinking, I know the name, but mullet with a non-mullet at the front, spiky hair at the front, mullet at the back. Is it business and party?
Yes, they're in the right order, aren't they? There.
What was his reputation then? What was he doing to get in with a shout?
Yeah, he'd kind of had a middling time at Tottenham. He'd gone
That's
there.
good.
Yeah, that's all right, isn't it? He'd taken over. I think he'd taken over from Venables around that time. Maybe Ardiles was in there as well, and he'd come in and seen as the manager to stabilise them and push them forward as well. And they were just mid-table for a lot of the time. But he was English with an okay Spurs side, so you were like, well, maybe that's pretty good. What's the rest of the jobs look like?
Do you think the FA would have been like, if we do hire you, you're definitely not going to sue Alan Sugar, are you? And he went, look, I promise that's not going to happen twice.
He's been fine with me.
Yeah.
He appointed me. He loves me. No problem. His Venables name.
He appointed Venables as well, mate. Come on. So that feels to me like a non-starter. But then I guess the landscape would have been not. There would have been more English managers than there would be now, or maybe not at this point, because we do have some good English managers right now. But
this second, But then you look at when like a Taylor was appointed. There's quite a few names where you go, okay, that's interesting. But for one reason or another, they all dropped by the wayside. And another interesting name that was mentioned was Brian Robson as well, who was living the good life at Middlesbrough with Janino. They'd finished a respectable 12th in the Premier League after he'd helped them gain promotion as a player manager. Robson was also part of Venables' setup and maybe saw the job as a bit too early for him. So he also declined being interviewed as well as Keegan did too.
No way. What about, does that just leave Francis in the clear then?
At this moment, yeah. So I think he still said that he was happy to talk, but maybe not as keen as some of the others. But there is discussion.
Who does he think he is?
Turning the England job down with that.
So where else is Armfield casting his net then? Because Francis isn't interested. Keegan's chuffed at Newcastle for the moment, and Robson is a bit tepid on the idea.
Yeah. So there is talk that Armfield approached Alex Ferguson at the time, but the Man United board of directors refused the FA permission to talk to Ferguson.
I don't think Ferguson would have done it. I don't like this. People always. I think it's been mentioned quite a lot. Oh, they tried to get Ferguson. I think Ferguson probably hates English people. Yeah. maybe that's strong, but I don't think he would have managed England. Why would he?
It's too much of a would it
too much of a loser for him. I think it's just it's such a big gamble to make when I'm already gambling with just trying to build like this biggest superpower in British football history with Manchester United.
And as well, I think the time when it was more talked about Ferguson was probably 2001 when Sven was appointed after Keegan.
Yeah.
Because you maybe can say then, all right, he'd done everything there was at Man United. Maybe there's another chance because he was, he said he was going to retire, then went back on it. So yeah, there was another one there. And even Bobby Robson was mentioned again. Poor Bobby Robson, agreeably not coming back for another tenure of England, and people call him a bus driver or something.
Yeah. What was in the name? No, I got that wrong then. In the name of Alago?
Yeah, it was in the name of God go, and then England drew with Saudi Arabia, and it was then in the name of Allah go, and it was just like, oh, this is repulsive.
So I didn't get it that wrong. It was as bad as I remembered.
Yes.
So was he approached, or is that just a bit of a rumor?
Yeah, he was happy just being out of England, essentially. Howard Kendall, who'd been spoken about around the time of Graham Taylor as well, kind of was out of his prime with it, past his prime with that too, after missing out on the job on 1990. So you do look through this and you go, who the hell are England going to get? They've got a good side, and like, where are they going to turn?
Well,
now?
let's talk about the good side just before we get to the big reveal. Just for a bit further context, we haven't covered the Venables era. Obviously, it's very famous, but what is the shape of England towards the back end of Venables' era?
So at the back of Venables, he left after Euro 96. So obviously there was like 2 years worth of friendlies that had built up England and Venables' style, and he had a team ready finally. And then they went in, they did, they drew their opening game. They beat Scotland in the second game, which kind of catapults them into we can do anything. There's a really good performance, but it's probably the scoreline probably flat as England when they beat the Netherlands in the Euros as well. They get through Spain on penalties, and then they get knocked out to West Germany in the semi-finals. And when they get knocked out, it's just like when the penalty takers are going up, it's still like there's a party going on.
Yeah.
Like Sheringham scores and he's just doing like a dance, and it's just like, what is happening here? Like, do you not realise this is really serious? And then all of a sudden,
Fatal sorted.
and then all of a sudden they were out, and it was just like, shit, no one was expecting that now. It had all been so perfect.
And against that backdrop of Don't Look Back in Anger and Wonderwall and everything like that as well, the country's just feels like everything's in place for a big England win.
Yeah.
I don't think people would have maybe they would have blamed Venables for the departure. It's quite a successful tournament by any measure, really, a semi-final.
As in, like, blame Venables for that's the reason they went out.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I don't think anything was to blame Venables for. I don't really think there's a victim there. I think it's just seen as unlucky. I think it's the Gaza miss that's seen as shit. That was the chance, because if he's got longer studs on, he scores and England go through with a golden goal and whatever. Actually, no, there was obviously one big villain. It was Gareth Southgate.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
So that was seen as, oh, look at you, you idiot. And he actually stepped up when Paul Ince decided he didn't want to take a penalty. One of the big leaders of the dressing room, and he was like, I'm not taking one.
That is strange, isn't it? That Paul Ince didn't fancy taking a penalty.
Which then comes back to bite him later in his life, but we'll get there one day.
So where was Venables off to?
I think he just took time out of the game, really. I think he was too busy trying to wind up Alan Sugar and destroy all of his businesses that he was like, he went all Game of Thrones on him, really, of like destroying like the ground he walks on.
So he's left that gap then. We've got Francis out of the equation. We've got Keegan not up for it. Ferguson saying sod off. Oh, well, his people saying sod off.
Man United are going, you're not touching him.
Yeah, Brian Robson, happy where he is. Howard Kendall, bit late in the day for me, mate. Is there anybody else?
Well, the man left under serious consideration here was Glenn Hoddle,
who had never really been under serious consideration to playing big games for England as a player.
Yeah, he'd never been really, in his eyes, picked properly to play for England, had he? And we've never really covered that period yet, which I'd be interested to do, see if he thinks it's correct to do so. But yeah, he believes as an England player, England was insular and closed off. Our Ireland mentality stood in the way of progress. Good to see things have changed.
Yeah. So I was listening to a podcast recently that's loosely about football, and they got on the subject of Glenn Hoddle. I think, has he just got another book coming out, and that's why he's doing all of these interviews in Nirvana t-shirts and things like that?
Maybe, yeah.
But they were saying it's well worth a read, and just talking about him as a player, I think the hosts are like 50, 52, 53, whatever. Yeah. But they were saying he was ahead of his time genuinely as as a footballer. And you still saw people trying to replicate his style of play about 10 years later. So it's a big thing to say, isn't it? That we've got an island mentality that stands in the way of progress. But if time has proven you to be ahead of your time and you didn't get the chances you deserved in your prime, you could, I kind of respect him for saying it.
Yeah, and he'd actually at least gone from England and gone, well, I'm going to play somewhere else, because he went to go and play at Monaco under Arsene Wenger, and he kind of gets his love of coaching from Wenger as well at this point.
Good place to get it from.
Yeah, Wenger's a good starting point, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. So what was he kind of? Well, there's a little quote here you've got actually about his time under Arsene Wenger in Monaco, where Hoddle says, "I was opening up spiritually. My intuition and the connection with Arsene told me that this is the right move. He wanted me to play number 10, and I loved every minute of being with Arsene, and we won the league in the first year." So one of those joyous experiences when it kind of all works and everything comes together with a player who's taken a gamble. What was he doing in terms of management then at this time?
So he then, when he moved from Monaco, I think he came back to England, and he took a player manager job at Swindon. We've slightly mentioned it on the Tournois game as well, but he'd done all right there as well. His first job, gaining promotion as a player manager with Swindon. I think it was in his first or second year, so success straight away. And then as soon as he got a sniff of it, he was off to Chelsea.
Yeah. I mean, Swindon, even then, is probably a lower. Chelsea's Chelsea, isn't it?
Yeah.
And he got Chelsea to an FA Cup final in his first season there, finished mid-table in numerous seasons, and reached the FA Cup semi-final in 1996 before taking the England job at the end of that season. So he's just come hot off the heels of a FA Cup semi-final.
Yeah. It's not the most exciting thing in the world, is it?
But he's probably, other than Keegan, he's one of the more exciting picks, I think, just because of the player he was.
And to be so young as well, he must be the youngest England manager ever, really.
I think we spoke about this at the time. I think he was.
He must have been, but for him to kind of go and get that Chelsea job, and because I think Chelsea had not long really been promoted themselves, even though they were still a big club. But then seeing Swindon get promoted and they've got a managerial slot, and they think, actually, that's kind of the thing we want. And he has an all right time at Chelsea. I don't think he's anything exceptional, but as we mentioned, maybe there's just not the candidates out there, and they're going, you know what, let's just take a gamble on it. Let's take a risk.
It's weird time to take a risk, isn't it? After such big success as well. You think you'd want somebody to go, all right, can we get somebody who can just get even the same level of performance and hopefully luck goes our way, or can somebody, be efficient enough to get 5 or 10% extra, because that's how close we are. But when you take a risk on somebody like Glenn Hoddle, a young manager, you kind of the bottom could be very low.
Yeah, and I guess you've kind of got that cycle of no matter what, he's got to be with us for 2 years.
Yeah.
So you're kind of going 2 years of a lot of our prime players. Is that kind of a worth the risk taking? And I think we kind of see as it goes along, it's a really interesting one they've gone with. Hoddle was announced in May 1996 that he'd be succeeding Venables. Just to make things less awkward, the FA agreed to do a joint press conference between Venables and Hoddle, just to show that the new tenure was going to go along swimmingly.
Yeah, we got a picture here, and they're wearing the exact same suit as well.
Yeah, they are. God, I didn't even notice that.
Oh, good looking man, Hoddle. We've said it before.
Yeah.
And we're now into the era of Hoddle, really. During the first few months of his reign, he gave debuts to players such as David Beckham and Andy Hinchcliffe, as well as recalling older and previously discarded England players such as Gary Pallister and Ian Wright. As we mentioned then as well, he also inherited a good crop of players in their peak, including David Seaman, Tony Adams, Alan Shearer, Teddy Sheringham, Paul Ince, Steve McManaman, and Paul Gascoigne. Strong. What do you think of his decision to bring back older discarded players?
I think it's interesting, is it? When you see a manager take over these days, it's just like, right, everything before was in the bin, doesn't really count anymore. But for him to go, Gary Pallister could do a few games for us. I don't know if maybe there was a bit of an injury crisis and he just thought, well, actually, none of the younger players are really stepping up yet, or they're not ready. So why not get someone in who could do a job? And you look at someone like Ian Wright, he kind of gives him like a second career almost at times.
Well, he would have been Taylor's era, wouldn't he, really?
Yes, he would have. I think he got his debut under Taylor, and then I think he plays 1 or 2 games under Venables, and Venables has just got such an embarrassment of like strikers riches that he doesn't really touch him again.
Do we talk a little about the ego? Because he's perceived, should we say, to have quite a high opinion of himself, Glenn Hoddle. And I see, I I see picking older players as a bit of an ego thing.
Yes.
Just being like, well, I can literally do better than other people
Yeah.
with these players when they're older as well. And it's just wanting to be smart, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like if I remember playing FIFA before against my brother, and I was Manchester United, and I think he was Real Madrid, and I was like, right, I'm just playing the kids and putting Fellaini up top, and I beat him like 3 or 4-0, and it was just Fellaini scored all 4 goals, and I
course
was
he
like,
did.
I've got in your head, haven't I, mate?
Yeah.
Go in your head there. Maybe Hoddle's thinking a bit of something like that, like just got by going like they're going to be expecting one thing, but they're not going to be expecting this, and I can guide this player and make them do whatever I
Yeah.
want them to do.
I think as well, and he's kind of taking risks by doing that. Because if Gary Pallister comes in, he costs England a goal in a World Cup qualifying game, and he does whatever, then you go, didn't really work out that. Why didn't you play our normal young player you've got there who isn't as like scarred by all this? But I think we see as he goes through his career as England manager, he takes a lot of gambles, and some of them pay off and some of them don't. But he's very much a manager who will just go, well, I made my decision, I'm standing by it, I've got to move on now.
Oh, definitely, yeah. He does move on when the time is right. Full steam ahead World Cup qualification, really, and you would imagine even if he is taking risks, that would be no problem. World Cup qualification in theory, but we'll get to the trickiness of that at some point. Captain, who's going to be his captain?
He appoints Alan Shearer. So I think Tony Adams had been the captain previously. And I think after Euro 96, Adams, I think it was after the defeat in the semi-final, he kind of said that he started to address his alcohol problem. So I don't know if he took a bit of time away from the game or what. I did try and look into it, but it's not really certain of how many kind of games he took. But I know he went into rehabilitation essentially. So Hoddle probably went, well, don't want you around anyway for now. So he gave it to Shearer. Shearer just come, off the back of his brilliant tournament for Euro 96 where he was top scorer, one of the best players. So he just, and he had his big move to Newcastle as well. So he goes, you're my captain. You're going to be my main man.
It fits the bill, doesn't it, really?
Yeah.
And he would stay in that role for beyond Hoddle's reign.
Yeah.
So on the younger players' side of things, Hoddle begins his reign by giving David Beckham his debut in a 3-0 win against Moldova.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of that then? David Beckham debut. Did you think he saw a bit of himself in young Becks, or do you think he was just an undeniable talent?
Probably a bit of both, really. He, again, a player of like centre midfield sometimes. At this young point in Beckham's career, he is playing out wide right, but he prefers to play in midfield. So he probably does see something of, actually, this guy reminds me of someone. Should I tell you who? It's me.
He's a good-looking lad.
Yeah, exactly.
The first goal of the Hoddle era, that came from Nick Barmby.
Who else?
Who else? It's a strange one, isn't it? We've kind of touched on it before. He's just somebody who's there at the start of a lot of England eras.
Yeah, I will be shocked if he's not the first goal under Venables as well when we get there, because he's the first goal under Sven too.
Wow.
And I don't think he plays much for Keegan actually.
I think, I don't know. Did he play in the first game, England, Poland, Keegan first game? Let's have
That's
a
a
look.
very good point actually.
Let's have a look. His first squad. I'll just look at the squad if I can get it. Barmby. Nope. Keegan said, get out of it.
No good, mate. Nick Barmby maybe had a couple of injuries along the way, but yeah, he for some reason Keegan just went, nope, not interested.
Yeah. But Hoddle was, and he's repaid that back there with his first goal of that reign. Also, in that game against Moldova, Paul Gascoigne and Alan Shearer with the goals. Good start.
Nice little start, isn't it?
And names you want to see Shearer and you want to see Gascoigne scoring, don't you?
Yeah.
Really. Stuart Pearce got a yellow card and Paul Ince as well in that game. You also want to see that.
They have to get yellow cards, don't they, for England? It's just mandatory.
I think that was a qualifying game and not a pointless friendly.
Yeah.
Not the friendlies are pointless when we win them.
Nope.
But, the next qualification game was at home to Poland, where England would fall behind before 2 goals from Alan Shearer. See the Three Lions collect another 3 points. They get another 3 points in Georgia. This time it's Teddy Sheringham and Les Ferdinand getting on the score sheet in Alan Shearer's absence. So that's England up to today's game. Quite, it's a perfect start, isn't it, really?
Yeah, great start for England. It's what you want. Beating the teams you should do, although I think Poland will be quite a tough opposition for some of the teams in England's group as well, but there's a big boy in there as well that England have got to face today.
And we meet that big boy whose mother called him Italy. which is a nice name.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a turning point for Italy at this point. I feel like whenever we see them, it's kind of in a bit of a turning point.
Yeah.
Their domestic league had dominated European football for decades, but with the rise of the Premier League, they were starting to lose some of their stars to England. This had started gradually, but over the next few years, the quality of the league would start to lessen with the rise of English and Spanish football. I mean, we all remember the glory days, and we probably remember the later glory days, to be fair.
Yeah, I definitely do. I wasn't into football when I was younger around this time, so it was more a case of, okay, that's on a Sunday, isn't it? And
Yeah.
but that was like such a big thing for people. People would just really fetishize that period of Italian football for good reason, because they had the best players in the world, and the Italian players were so interesting to watch as well, their own homegrown ones, and people used to just flock to watch it, didn't they?
Yeah, and it's like you say, it's like fetishized and iconic and stuff like that.
There's
But
so many like documentaries about I think it was Galazzo was a program with
Yeah.
James Richardson, and it's just like they've done so many things about, oh, here he is in his little cafe again with his big newspaper. It's like, yeah, I get it.
yeah, it would have been good though.
Yeah, I'm not saying it was like a bad show or anything, but it was just like, all right, I know this isn't for me, but I'm just like, let it go. Like,
I don't know, man. I don't know. We'll be like that when we're older about something. Well, we're older now, so.
yeah.
But yeah, Italy, we catch them when the league is slightly starting to decline. The national side, managed by Cesar Maldini, who had trained Italy's under-21 team for a decade, but never been in charge of the full national team. I was going to say the McLaren route, but that's not quite the McLaren route. It's almost Southgate-esque.
It's pretty much Southgate's route, even though if I don't think Southgate was probably England 21. I mean, there's no way of knowing, but like I don't think he was really the youth manager for that long. He was just seen as, shit, Allardyce has done something terrible. I've got to step in. So I've got to step in now and do it. And he didn't really want the job, did he?
No.
But Maldini was like full on. I am having this. This is my chance finally.
Yeah, and as you say, straight in there. He actually took charge in December 1996, so not long before this game. He was appointed as a replacement to Arrigo Sacchi after a disappointing Euro 1996 campaign for the Italians. So Maldini is the father of Paolo Maldini, who, as we've seen him play, managed by his dad, right?
I don't think he was in the Tournoi game.
He was poorly.
He was injured, and he was like, "Dad, I can't make it."
That's it. So he takes over at a time when Italy seemed to have all the right players, but Sarchi's seemingly arrogant decision to keep rotating his side, especially in the second group game of Euro '96, it cost them. They crashed out in the group stage, so it just too smart for his own good.
Definitely.
And maybe they need somebody a bit more sensible. Maybe they need somebody a bit more Glenn Hoddle.
No, this is the best thing. Who's going to do it? Just get my dad in. My dad's sensible.
They were blessed as well with their own wave of new players coming into the side, with Nesta, Totti, Vieri and Cannavaro claiming victory actually in the under-21 Euro Championship. So despite the full team having a bit of a disappointing tournament, they can just bring up all the kids.
It's just not fair, is it? When you see like some of the list of players they're able to bring in.
Yeah, imagine England's Euro 96 under-21s team.
Yeah, I think England did well in some of the youth tournaments. I think Scholes and Fowler and maybe even Campbell were in some of the ones when they did really well in one of them. I think they were the youth one.
Scholesy, man. how we could have done with Scholesy. We've seen a lot of peak Paul Scholes, and I can't help but feel I just want to insert him into any fixture that he's not a part of. Yeah. No spoilers, but he's not a part of this one today. So World Cup qualification then. Maldini's team won their opening two games against Moldova and Georgia, with Ravanelli scoring 3 of their goals before he and the rest of the squad headed for the first of 2 giant head-to-heads with England. The first, today's game, is at Wembley Stadium.
It is enormous, this one, isn't it? You know, Italy and England drawn in a World Cup qualification group. It's just like, that's not fair. Yeah. They've got Andorra 3 times, like over there, these other teams. But yeah,
a crowd just not ready to, no. Britpop is not over.
No.
Euro 96 was a stumbling block. We have a cool young manager.
Yeah.
And we're going to win.
I thought you were going to say we've got a cool young prime minister then.
Well, we have that as well.
Of course we do, yeah.
Yeah, at the height of the optimism, everything's going to shit.
Everything's going to be fine. Honestly, it's going to be fine. But yeah, so it's the day of the game. It's just about before. We're going to see what's going to happen. We've mentioned before that, Glenn Hoddle, he likes a bit of a gamble, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Well, before we get to the lineups today, there was already controversy about the team before it was officially announced.
How so?
So the big team news was that Matt Letizia started for England. The even bigger news was there was the selection by Hoddle had leaked.
Right, right. Okay, so let's take that piece by piece. So let's talk about Letizia starting for England just very broadly. What's your sort of take on Letizia as a player? Because he's one that when YouTube became a thing, I would be like, I bet you've never heard of this guy, and watch him score the best goals you've ever seen. And he did, surely it's undeniable.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. An amazing player in his heyday and all that kind of stuff. He had a very weird England career up to this point, so it was seen as such a big gamble up to this point because it was only his 8th cap for England. His first coming back in Venables, his first game as manager in March of '93, I think it was actually. Since his debut in the same year, he was brought on in friendlies against Greece, Norway, and Nigeria, as well as starting against Romania. This was during England's 2-year build to hosting Euro '96, so no competitive games along the way. So he hasn't really made an impact yet. He's coming on in a couple of games, starting one, not scored a goal either yet.
So yeah, so he's got a few caps, but it's in sort of experimental times.
Yeah.
Which kind of hints towards him not being a favourite of Venables, which I think actually is the case. Letitia's next start would come in a friendly against the Republic of Ireland in February 1995. An infamous match due to the crowd trouble from England fans. The game was abandoned after 27 minutes. Sections of the England away following were were National Front members, which is good. Well, it's not good, but
it's not good. It's not the opposite of good.
There's no way of making it good. Nazi salutes were made, coins were thrown, vile chants were sung. England were actually losing before the game was abandoned, and when the result was declared void, while the result was declared void, all caps still counted. So another one for Letizia, although. He wouldn't get a call up again for a long time after that, I don't think.
No, it would then be until the Hoddle era, because Venables basically had seen that Ireland game is seen as, this is your chance, Letizia. I'm going to start you and see what happens. And unfortunately for him, he doesn't really get the chance to do it, as I say, because the game is abandoned. And he has enough strikers then going into Euro '96 where he goes, these are my surefire people. Let's just crack on with these. And like you said, Letizia was a truly brilliant player in the early days of the Premier League, performing miracles to keep Southampton in the top division and scoring some of the best goals the league would ever see. Like, very YouTubeable player these days, but
definitely.
Also his goal return was always pretty prolific too. His first season in the league, he scores 15, assists 10. Then it's 25 goals, 9 assists. 19 goals, 15 assists. A little bit of a dip in 95, 96 with 7 goals. And 8 assists as well.
Just when the tournament's there.
Yeah, just when it's just like, okay, 96 is just about coming up. Oh, you've got no chance now. So that's kind of where Letizia is finishing. So we're about midway through the league season at this point as well.
A little insight into his relationship with Terry Venables. Because of his Guernsey roots, Matt Letizia could have played for Northern Ireland or Wales and was approached to do so. But and apparently Venables did nothing to stop him playing for Wales when he was given that opportunity. But Matt didn't consider himself as anything other than an Englishman and thought it would be wrong to play for another country. There's a little quote here as well from an interview with the Mirror titled, "Hoddle's rescued me from hell with Tell." Which that's not a quote. He doesn't say hell with Tell at all. Anyway, when it became clear Terry was leaving and the England manager's job was up for grabs, I was hoping that it would go to Glenn Hoddle. He'd already proved he rated me highly because he wanted to buy me when he was at Chelsea. I thought Glenn would appreciate the difficulties I had faced in trying to break into the England team, as he had encountered a similar situation himself. People have branded us both flair or luxury players, so Glenn probably understands me better than Terry.
Yeah, again, it's seeing something of himself in a player of, I was disrespected for England. I was, the player that they should have picked. So maybe he sees him and just goes, I can get something out of him. I'll play him in these games.
I think, yeah, and it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, but I think it's a desire to make a genius move, because if that comes off, it's just going to come off in a big way. And like you say, if it doesn't, it's not the end of the world, because you've given a player a try who some fans would have wanted to see anyway, and you've kind of proven why you're right to not select him going forward.
Yeah, you've given them enough rope to hang themselves with almost. You've tried it, and if it doesn't work, then you haven't, not too bad. If it works, brilliant. We've got another striker.
He wasn't used in the games prior to this though. He's brought him back for the big one.
Yeah, I think he comes. I don't even know if he comes on actually, but he hasn't started for England since that Ireland game as well. And we then get into the point of okay, he thought he was going to be the big surprise thing, and then, as we mentioned, the team leaks early on.
Yeah, the team leaks in an age before social media and an age before the Athletic. Matt Letizier's brother, Carl, spelt with a K, I believe, called up BBC Radio Guernsey to tell the station his brother had been selected. So he'd gone very local with this exclusive.
Yeah.
Carl with a K. It just adds something to it, doesn't he?
Well, we'll get into this. Weirdly, we'll get into if it's a K or a C in a moment. But yeah, he'd called up BBC Radio Guernsey to tell the station that his brother had been selected for England.
Yeah.
But
that's ahead of a big game.
But that's like I think it was like the day before or the morning of the game.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. So is there enough time for it to break?
Yes. So it broke, and it was like even the Italy team knew that Letizia was starting.
Yeah.
So much that they thought it was actually a double bluff.
Why would he call up?
Because there's in the Letizia gene pool, I'm not going to lie to you, there's not many brain cells knocking around, if I'm perfectly honest.
Oh, that is harsh.
Is it?
No.
So, as well, I did try and find a picture of Carl to put in the notes, but I was taken to the Twitter of a Carl Letizier, who was based in Guernsey, spelt with a C.
Okay.
Unsure if it was him, but when the leak at the time, it was spelt with a K. It's just like, is this where his distrust with the media woke up? It's with a C, you idiots.
Yeah.
Wake up, sheeple. Just going spare about it. But yeah, I had a look into this, and yeah, good indication it is him, because lots of retweets of lots of anti-vax and anti-lockdown stuff, calling Andrew Tate a truth teller. So, in the bin with all them.
Yeah. I'm scared that he might come after us. He might come after us.
Really?
Was there any further treats amongst his tweets?
He also retweeted a post saying the BBC was being controlled by the Tories. So a confusing man. Pick a side. Like, what are you at this point? Are you like, where are you? But yeah, just an interesting character. If you want to call like a bloke down the pub glassing himself interesting.
I can't believe he called up the local radio station to leak the team.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. And it's just like, for God's sake. But this was, again, on the eve of the game, the biggest thing in the world. It's his brother's chance to, sort it all out. And you just think, what on earth are you doing? And this is kind of the thing of like, I think BBC Guernsey said it was the biggest story they'd ever covered, clearly as well. And
yeah,
it's your brother's biggest chance. And yeah, we'd said that Letizia had done so well in the Prem as well. I think he went on to be Southampton's second highest scorer ever. Can you name me the first?
Can I name me the biggest Southampton scorer ever? So I don't have to be English.
No, it's just the top scorer in their history. Matt Letizia is number 2.
I think there might be English. Why am I thinking Jermaine Defoe? I don't think he's ever played for them.
He's not, no.
James Beattie?
No.
Let me have another go.
Got one more, and I'll give it you.
Did Keegan play for them?
He did.
Is it
played
Keegan?
for. It's not Keegan, I'm afraid.
Oh, bloody Nora.
It is Mick Channon.
It's Mick Channon. Big Channon.
That's some good Channon going on there.
Yeah, some good Channon. That's all the best of him. I should have known that, really.
Yeah, for me to put that in, it's got to have to be something, isn't it?
Right. Let's get to it. Well, I'm going to start with the England lineup.
Yes.
Spoiler, Paul Scholes isn't playing and Matt Letizia is.
Yeah.
But here we go anyway. In goal, we have Ian Walker. We have a back five consisting of David Beckham, Gary Neville, Sol Campbell, Stuart Pearce and Graham Lasso. Midfield, we have Paul Ince and David Batty, with Steve McManaman playing ahead of them. And up front, Matt Letizia and Alan Shearer, the captain. On the bench, we have David James, Gareth Southgate, Rob Lee, Jamie Redknapp, Les Ferdinand, Paul Merson and Ian Wright. Right. Okay, where to start? Well, let's start with the goalkeeper, I think. Ian Walker.
Yeah, this is the other big selection talking point, was Ian Walker starting in goal as David Seaman pulled out of the team the day of the game with a sore knee.
I've got a sore knee.
Oh, it's bloody give me jip. This is
Peter Shilton's like, I'll help out. All you gotta do is ask.
only me.
Only me. Did I hear sore knee? So yeah, Ian Walker. Christ,
Only his third cap for England at this point, and it's his first competitive start as well.
wouldn't he go to the World Cup in 2002? There was definitely a game we've covered where he was in a squad, and we were like, that is too late for Ian Walker.
Oh, maybe it was the Euros 2000? Maybe
Maybe.
I think it
That
may have been because
seems-
Nigel Martin's the number 2, so maybe he goes as the number 3 keeper. Because David James is essentially England's number 3 keeper here, and he's never played for England.
Wow, imagine a time. Imagine a time before David James.
Pre-James.
Pre-James for England, yeah. So it's Walker's third cap and his first competitive game.
What a big game to do it as well.
I know. Oh. Let's have a look. Well, it's kind of interesting all over the pitch. I mean, David Beckham essentially playing on the right of a back five.
Kind of, yeah. It's kind of like a wing-back system, so you can slightly muddle and get away with that by saying, well, he's kind of right midfield, kind of right back against the role, but still.
This is the role you touted him for a while ago.
I think that's where he'd probably end up playing if he was a player in today's game, really, because I don't think he's got the pace that you just need in today. Like Beckham was, he wasn't incredibly slow, but I think it's a similar, again, that Trent Alexander-Arnold comparison. I just can't ever get that out of my head of like, yeah, that's just who they are, aren't they?
The centre backs then. Do you want to talk us through the centre backs? We've got Gary Neville, Sol Campbell, and Stuart Pearce.
Yeah, and Stuart Pearce and Gary Neville to me are seen more as fullbacks. So them
100%.
So them playing as part of the back three, if we're going to call it that for now, it's just a bit like, ooh, don't really know if that works. And
No.
then Campbell playing in like a sweeper role as well. He was very athletic and quick and strong, and you just think, well, maybe that's not the worst role for him. But I think we see that later on, Southgate kind of becomes that player for England to play in the sweeper role to bring the ball out. No Southgate today, and Adams is out the team as well, maybe with his recovery issues as well.
Maybe we're missing a couple of players, but that seems like a light bench. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
I think
7 players.
I think you're only allowed a certain amount of players on your bench at this point, especially for World Cup qualifiers.
Jesus, it's light, man.
You've got to make big decisions at this point, and this is why it's just like there's certain players you just go, where the hell are they? And it's like, well, we can only get so many in, but there is a glaring omission in this as well. There is no Paul Gascoigne for this game.
Yeah, well, we do have Steve McManaman playing, I guess, where he would have.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, do you want to know how Paul Gascoigne got injured for this game? Are you just going to have a guess first?
I'm thinking it's going to be an eating thing, like he's ate something.
A really hot egg.
I was thinking a pie. He's underestimated the filling of a pie.
Yeah, and he's just like out for 3 weeks.
Yeah, because he spilt it on his knee. It dripped out onto his knee and burnt it.
Or he's just going to like walk around with just like his mouth just in a big ice block.
Yeah,
It's too
yeah.
hot.
Put your mask on, Paul.
Oh, not that again.
Do you know why he missed it?
Yes, because he'd taken part in the Sony Amsterdam Mini Disc Sixes.
What the hell is the Sony Amsterdam Mini Disc 6s?
So this was a friendly tournament in Amsterdam that took place, and it was like an indoor, like six-a-side tournament. So Rangers, Liverpool, and Ajax had all gone and played over at this point, and he got injured during the game. How is that allowed? You're playing a six-a-side indoor tournament, and you're letting Paul Gascoigne play in it.
Well, let's hope he got paid wealthily in mini discs of Be Here Now. You'd need a couple of those.
My goodness. I mean, is that the strangest injury we've seen so far?
It is. And I don't know how he could ever be surprised at being left out of a squad again for the rest of his life.
You kind of got to think that's this club's fault as well. Of like this, these were like their competitive teams. So like Liverpool's first team went over there as well. Ajax's first team too. And you just think, why are you doing this weird inside tournament? Surely there's more things indoors, so you're going to get injured by more things than if you're outside, surely.
Floor's harder as well.
Scuff your knee.
Happy to see McManaman back. He's been a bit of a mystery, and last time we saw him, he did quite well against Portugal.
Yes, he'd scored, and he'd apparently solved England's left-handed side problem until he got injured.
Yeah, but here he is replacing Gascoigne, essentially. Not much else for me to comment on other than, I've said the bench is quite small, and just like, you look at players like that, and I don't think there's anywhere where we're going to see the best of Paul Merson for England.
No, probably not. Didn't have the best England career really when you look at it, because
That's
it
it.
never seemed like the right slot for him. Maybe it was the Taylor era he should have played a bit more.
I think like a bench of Southgate, Rob Lee, Jamie Redknapp, Les Ferdinand, Paul Merson, and Ian Wright. You could say the same thing about all of them, which is just like never really had the best England career, did they?
Yeah, you'd probably set with a couple of the starters as well. Like McManaman never seemed to really get there and excel. I'd probably say Letitia we've talked about, and you know it's a
Yeah.
big gamble playing him today too. But yeah,
Well, you could say Gareth Southgate had a great England career, but just later.
yeah, just different.
Right then, do you want to give us the Italy team?
Yes, starting goal Angelo Peruzzi, and then they have a team of Ciro Ferrara, Alessandro Costacurta, Fabio Cannavaro, Paolo Maldini, and Angelo Di Livio. They have Dimitro Albertini, Dino Baggio, Roberto Di Matteo, Gianfranco Zola, and Pierluigi Casaraghi. And on the bench, just to hear the names, because
Yeah.
they are beautiful. Francesco Toldo, Alessandro Nesta, Antonio Benarivo, Alessandro Del Piero, Enrico Chiesa, Diego Fusa, and Fabrizio Ravanelli.
That is a great team and bench, really,
Yeah,
from top to bottom.
fantastic, isn't it? Amazingly, Ravanelli had scored 3 goals for Italy in qualification, dropped.
Dropped.
What else has he got to do? They've only played 2 games. He scored 3 goals, but today, you know, they've done something. They've changed it up to go. Actually, you're not in today.
Would you think Zola would have been in England at this time?
Yes, he is in the Premier League at this point. Already moved to Chelsea, playing up front with Casarighi and Di Matteo. I think is probably at Chelsea as well at this point.
Yeah, Fabio Cannavaro, Costa Curta, some great names. Even the bench. Jesus, when we were saying England, you could say you've got players who never really had a great career. Then you've got Nesta, Del Piero, Ravanelli, and Toldo on the Italy bench.
Yeah. Also, what we get as well as we kind of start when we're watching the game is we get the Italian lineup on TV, and it's one of the most disgusting formations I've ever seen. The way they do it is just like this. I had the down as playing a diamond, and it looks like Delivio is actually playing the right wing back, and the Italian comms use the word libero. So it must be kind of like a back two with a libero, so it's a sweeper in Costa Curta. But on the screen, there's this horrible big gap in the middle of it.
It's not. It's the way they've laid it out. I guess you got the keeper in the goal. You got Costa Curta just in front of him with Ferrara and Cannavaro to the right and left of him. Then just a big horrible circle and like 7 players just bungled together up like in the second half of the pitch.
Oh, it's just horrible.
Yeah, it is bad. It gives me a headache to look at that.
And it's also got this like faded pitch on it as well. This almost like a skin, like off a soup or something. It's just over the top of the Wembley pitch. Oh, it made me feel sick.
Well, we had to watch this with foreign coverage, didn't we? Really?
It's Italian comms. They're back.
Yeah, Italian comms. I thought I recognised the young Roberto Mancini in there. Turns out I did.
Yeah, it's Roberto Mancini and Gianluca Vialli as well. They've travelled to England to commentate on this game, and you can tell they're in England because they're up in the gantry somewhere on a tiny desk for 4 people. They've just got super computers like at the time and everything. It looks too small for a 4-man booth.
It's not a tiny desk gig, is it?
No.
The tiny desk concerts.
No.
I'd like to see that, I think, with these 4.
Yeah,
I think they could belt out a tune.
Yeah, oh yeah, Mancini definitely, you think, wouldn't he? He'd be loving that one. But yeah, I didn't like the booth, but I like that Vialli and Mancini are just such good mates from Sampdoria. They'll just do the gig together.
Yeah.
I'll come if I can bring Roberto.
Looks like Roberto's got some stubble going on the go here. Which
it
makes him look a bit like, it looks good, and it's very much just like, been out shagging all night.
I think he was. I don't know if he was playing for Leicester around this time. He played for Leicester for a very tiny period of time, Roberto Mancini.
No way.
And he's just like, I wonder to say, but amazingly, these 2 guys in the comms box, they go on to win Italy Euro 2020, don't they?
Yeah, they
It's
do.
just like, wow.
With Southgate on the bench for us as well.
Yeah, that's very true, isn't it? God.
I know. It makes you feel old, doesn't it? But the kits, we've spoken about them in previous games, two beauties. So we're on to the anthems then.
Oh my God, the anthems. So the Italian anthem starts with what sounds like the Imperial March from Star Wars. It's just this big noise that comes in, like the ultimate bad guys are coming to town, and damn, they look good in those shirts.
Tribuna d'onore con il senatore Vittorio Cecchigori e altri illustrissimi ospiti. Inni nazionali.
It looks like a kind of a scene from a musical. So we get a bit of an operatic number, don't we?
Yes, we do. We get the first national anthem being sung by an actual singer that we've ever seen as well.
Yeah.
So we've never seen that before. And for the Italians, it's an actual opera singer in Wembley. You know, the night sky sounds great. Lots of clips of Italians waving flags and balloons. Brilliant.
They look an angry bunch. It's like I've kind of noted that it looks like this opera singer is like trying to tell these 11 young hoodlums from the village not to go and like behead people in the next town because their life is worth more than that and they'll spend the rest of it in prison.
Yeah.
And they're just not having it.
No.
They're like, he got to pay. He got to pay. So well done, Italy. You know, you've knocked it out the park there with that one, an operatic national anthem.
And not to be outdone, almost immediately, it feels like the Italy and national anthem hasn't even ended yet. And not to be outdone, the English one kicks in, and it's sung by like a little Mick Hucknall.
Yeah.
Like he looks quite Hucknall-esque.
does.
It starts out all confusing, and no one quite knows what bit they've started on. Like, is this the song? Is this the intro bit? But give them 3 seconds, and it's one of the greatest national anthems I've ever heard.
Portarsi un po' meglio, E ora l'inno nazionale inglese.
Big little Mick Hucknall doing the job.
That was, the crowd are incredible. It's like the crowd are all mic'd up as well. And after hearing that, I just want to run out of the studio, find the nearest statue of an Englishman on a horse and defend him from anyone who questions how he daren't earn his money back in the day. Leave him alone. We're English.
Yes. I agree. It was a great performance. I think often England fans' hearts are in the right place with the national anthem. They want to sing it, but we must remember it's a song without a beat.
Yes.
Try and find the beat in it. It doesn't exist. So it doesn't help that we don't have anything to center us.
Yeah.
Like we have the music, but that always starts out seemingly. There's no intro, is there?
No, it almost starts like it starts with, there's either a long intro, and then before the England fans know, it's like, oh, I've got to start God say.
Yeah,
Like they've
that's
just
it.
or they just go, there's the music, and they just start screaming from the distance.
Yeah, we can't like self-police our anthem, especially in the stadium when there's fans.
We need a 3, 2, 1.
Yeah,
I think that's needed.
It just goes like, God, like it's like the shittest drum roll of all time.
Yes.
We need a 3, 2, 1, or we need like a bass drum. But in this instance, we get a fantastic singer giving it some welly.
I definitely think it's because that Italian one was so good. It's Wembley. It's absolutely pissing it down it's before the game. But as well, everyone is soaked. Glenn Hoddle's hair is already soaked, and you wouldn't think he'd been on the pitch yet. I don't think he's done like the warm ups. So you're like, well, why is your hair wet?
I think he wants to look cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. He wants to look cool, so he's just gone and stood out there for 10 minutes, got all his hair wet, put his leather jacket on.
I've listened to the new Blur album.
Yeah, so we are essentially ready. A few minutes into the game, and I was taken aback. I was very offended by what I saw early into this game.
Yeah, we just try and start to soak up the atmosphere, and it's time for an advert for the new Renault Megane.
An advert
Immediately.
during a football game.
This must have been like a regular occurrence in Italian football where they just go, anytime there's like a throw in or anything, there's an advert, and it's like you've just kicked off and there's a Renault Megane advert.
But like, it's not on the wrestling. They cut to breaks during matches because they can predetermine when it's going to finish.
Yeah.
You can't do that with the football. Anything could happen.
Well, and that's the thing, isn't it? There's clips in this where I'm just like, wait a minute, wasn't that a corner? Like, was that given? Was it not given? I don't know. And then it's like, okay, back from the ads. That's over. I thought this was just the stream that we were watching it on. It happened after kickoff, whatever. Let's just get on with it. The only time I can think of a crowd this up for it, getting back into that, was Euro in 2021 against Germany. And immediately, a minute in, the crowd are just up for it and screaming.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think they're so up for this?
I think the anthem, because it's Italy coming, they think after Euro 96, England have got a big chance of doing something at this World Cup. It's a new era. It's an exciting manager. They've got the players to do it now. It's a big national side coming as well. And they know that it's crucial for World Cup qualification, this as well. So they already do or die.
Because only one team in the group goes automatically through, right?
And one will have to have the unseeded, so no protection of where your ranking is or country of going into the playoffs.
Maybe the gloomy night as well help, because if it's a Tuesday night, England are playing and the weather's like that, you're just gonna go, come on, win, make it worthwhile.
They've been in the pub since 5 o'clock,
Yeah.
just getting ready, and they're in there. It's honestly like, it's like being in the Colosseum at times. Letizia has an early turn on Delivio and sets Lasso through, and it's a corner, and they just go wild from it. And Advert straight away.
Yeah.
So Lasso wins the corner from the exchange, and we're waiting to see what happens. And there's a big, horrible advert that comes up of a well-manicured, bearded man with a little olive on a stick.
Yeah, listening to it, I don't know if the olive's saying to him, kill them.
It's singing a little horrible song, and I hated that olive. I thought it was like a little sausage at first.
It looks like a garlic clove as well.
Maybe it is. I couldn't figure it out. But why are England-Italy games just so silly? Thinking that the bicentennial game was the silliest game on earth. This is just like the next level of like 90s silly, isn't it?
Yeah, this is bad. It is something that should be stamped out. And if I ever see an advert during a football game, I'll just turn it off and never watch football again.
What about 2010 when
Yeah.
when Gerrard's goal was done by an advert and blatant screen for ITV HD? I think this would have been on Sky actually. Well, this coverage of this game, this is the Italian one we are watching, and there's just, I can't even tell you how many adverts are on. There's a so corner, we just miss it.
Yeah.
It's just not on the TV anymore.
Do you think it was like a post live stream that we've ended up watching all these years later? Like this would have been like the game was on live at say 7 p.m. and then at 2 a.m. they replayed it with adverts in.
I don't think so, because I feel like you miss stuff that happens. Like there's a throw in, and all of a sudden, like you don't get to see the throw in come in, or there's a goal kick and you miss part of it. Like it's only like 5-second adverts, and you've got the live commentary team there as well, and they don't seem to miss a beat. Maybe they know when they're at an advert for a few seconds, but my God, we find out there's no clock on this, so we know when 5 minutes has elapsed because there's a little alert comes on. And which is also advertising Varrock shoes.
Yeah, even the time is advertised, so they've monetized time, not just sponsoring the time, but withholding the time from us unless it comes with some sweet advertising.
It's just disgusting. This is it. There's an advert for Sanson, whatever that is, L'Oreal, Elvive, the Yellow Pages at one point, a Dracula man, and a woman making herself go cross-eyed due to the price of her gold on the phone.
Yeah, there's also an advert for somebody who's gone down in history as one of the bad guys.
There's an incredibly distasteful advert for Adolf Hitler in this as well. I've Googled what it means. I think it's La Guerra del Führer. So this is the Führer's War. They're advertising videos of the Führer's War in between this. Like, I'm sorry, but that's never appropriate.
What about the Lasso's Corner?
We don't get to see that, but we get to see an advert for this. And the advert is like just 5 seconds of lots of the best of Hitler, essentially. It's just disgusting.
That is bad.
But with everything else, like all these adverts, and they go out throughout the entire game, and it's like an F1 car has become sentient.
Yeah.
And we're just in its dream. It's just advert everywhere, upside down shell, whatever this is, no one knows, Red Bull. It's just horrible. And
back on the pitch then.
Yeah, back to this. We're kind of going to leave the adverts there because they are a distraction throughout to us, but that's where they are.
That's what we have to endure. It felt particularly painful, this one to watch because of those. We hear from the crowd, football's coming home within the first 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It's during a qualifier for a tournament we haven't qualified for, and it's 5 minutes into that qualifier, which is the third game.
Yeah.
It's very, very early to assume that we're going to be bringing any tournaments home.
I think it just become a terrorist chant in general of kind of getting the team up for it.
Of course, yeah.
But you don't have, like, for England, you don't have like, oh, let's sing the Paul Ince England song or the whatever. I think the Harry Maguire song started as an England song. It's one of the few England national side songs that I've got that. But even like here, you don't see anything like that, do you?
We've got
Oh, that.
Like the England band.
Oh, we've got the
songs.
England band, which I'm not keen on,
No,
really.
no,
I think I'm not keen on them. If they disappeared, I wouldn't care.
Exactly. What's happening in the game?
Yeah, back to the game. England start well in this. It's a really frantic game. England feel tough, but they've got the quality to hurt Italy. But then you remember Italy have got a bloody good team, and they've got a lot of the same qualities as England, but maybe they're just a bit smarter in what they're doing at times.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Kind of key players for England, I would say Paul Ince. He's kind of fighting for every ball, keeping it smartly when it's passed to him, and he's kind of leading by example. I think we've seen maybe the worst of Paul Ince early on in our podding life cycle, and I've kind of held that judgment over him. But I'd say this is like the best I've seen of Ince, and you can see why he would be kept past his peak, because just his application and his kind of attitude for the game and the competitive side of it. I don't think he ever really loses that.
No, and even kind of like past it, ghost imitation Paul Ince is probably better having on the pitch than a player who's just not got the desire.
And if you're a manager just coming in as well, you'll think, God, I need a few players like him.
Yeah.
They'll they know what they're there for, and I don't have. They're not all over the shop with like being mercurial talents and stuff like that. Like, he's just going to try his best.
And maybe he is a bit of maybe his personality kind of steps in at that point. But when you've got some young players around you, a bit of personality actually helps. And it is kind of saying, well, I'm better than everybody else and I've got a will to win. He's not really putting his own team aside to do that. He's enforcing himself on the other players of the Italy team here.
Another man who's trying to enforce himself on this game is our man Matthew Lettice. Tries a shot from about 35 yards out when there were multiple options around him. It's blocked and nothing major comes from the break that Italy have as a result of that. But is he just going to try too hard to make this the Lettice night?
Yeah, you do think he's been told this is your one chance, almost.
And I don't know if that's good.
No, yeah, to kind of almost put the pressure on him to really ramp it up, to say this is your big chance. It's Italy, your brothers leaked the team. Let's just not discuss that anymore. You know, it's all right. No, that won't be held against you in the future. It's fine. And as at this point, the game's on a real knife edge as well. Letizia had a shot blocked, and with like one pass, Italy are in on England's goal. Kazarigi kind of takes it down wide and crosses it in, and Zola and Campbell both run basically onto the penalty spot because that's where the ball is. Zola gets there first and drags it wide. The Letizia chance was only stopped just to a really good block as well.
It's a separate one from the shot from 35 yards out that was blocked. This was I thought it was a really good chance, actually. Kind of forced to him. Is it a volley? Did he hit it on the volley? What you say, it was a block that kind of maybe prevented it from going in.
Yeah, he kind of just gets it almost like sits upon his knee, and then he goes to volley it like a classic Letizia goal, but he just gets blocked, and then all of a sudden, Italy, I think it's with like one pass, they're up in England's half.
Yeah, I think the game is almost being played like it's extra time. But instead of everyone being knackered, they're not knackered. They're just it's like we've got to make something and we have to be the first to make something.
It feels like both teams are about to go out of a tournament unless one of them scores.
Yeah.
It's just like this is like the last couple of minutes. Like we're both out here, so let's just see if someone can get through.
Zola's was a good chance though. Yeah. I think they both were good chances there, but it can't keep going on like this. It's a ridiculous game. A little shout out for Roberto Di Matteo as well. Last time we saw him, he was injured very early. I think Stuart Pearce may have killed him. And he was kind of crucial in creating that chance for Zola with his pace and invention. So excited to see those two kind of team up again.
Yeah, the only issue is Zola doesn't need a second invitation.
L'unica volta che l'Italia vinse su questo terreno, lo ricordiamo tutti, fu nel 73 col gol di Capello. Attenzione, Zola, l'aggancio, il destro, grandissimo gol. Gianfranco Zola, in vantaggio all'Italia al 19esimo.
Un gol straordinario perché ha fatto un controllo al volo fantastico in area, poi da posizione difficilissima ha centrato l'angolo tra palo e portiere, ma quello che è straordinario è l'arresto in corsa e il tiro, ma l'arresto è stato quello che l'ha messo in condizione
No, he does not.
First blood, Italy.
Yeah, first blood. Probably the worst of all the bloods to concede, isn't he?
To Italy as well, especially. Of all teams.
Yeah.
To be really stereotypical, you've gone behind to Italy. Bad move.
Bad move. What were you thinking? Not much that they could do, really.
Yeah, not really. Italy started slowly, just as they always do, but they've struck. The back three of Italy play the ball around, seemingly waiting for Zola to make a run. Nesta plays a long ball over the top for Zola to run onto, and it's in between Pearce and Campbell. Zola kind of nips in, it has runs through and scores past Ian Walker's near post. Golazio.
I didn't see you bring that espresso in with you. Just a sip while describing that goal.
Me and my James Richardson. Oh, hello there.
Hello there.
Really weird presenting style that he's
Yeah.
got. Like, well, anyway, we're going to look at the management here, and yeah, oh dear, it's not really there.
Very droll, isn't he?
But it's just like he's like Christopher Walken, like takes all the punctuation out almost. Like
Yeah.
he's just got this a way of speaking that nobody else does he? Well, that's what I'm bringing now.
Well, Zola's beat Walker, but apparently Walker was also injured.
Yeah, Walker was also injured going into the game too.
He needed injections of cortisone and painkillers into an inflamed left shoulder. Need your shoulder as a goalkeeper, you should know that.
Famously.
He was hiding it from England and Spurs. So this was going on up to a week before the game. A physio noticed he was making saves with his right hand rather than his stronger left. Why? Just fancy it, don't I?
Just trying something out.
Just trying something out. Well, don't, because we're playing Italy soon. I'm not going to play, am I?
Yeah, I'll be fine. I'll just go up for the sesh. It's fine.
Desperate to be on the bench and in the sesh, yeah. So England are playing a injured goalkeeper, man.
Anything to avoid playing David James, isn't it? Because he's not played for England yet. And we actually get a quick look on the sidelines of James warming up. And he looks a bit like De Niro's Frankenstein. He's just so much taller than everybody else. And he's just got this shaved head. And it's like, whoa.
Yeah, like embryonic David James.
Yeah.
Much else to say on the goal? I mean, I just thought it was just a good Zola finish.
I think so, yeah. Looking at what people have said at the time, the blame kind of sits with Sol Campbell on this, who is said to have not reacted quick enough to get the ball. But I'd say the blame's more with Pearce over everybody, because as he's kind of caught under the ball, misses the header and leaves space behind for Zola to run onto. Also, Campbell's got a lot of room to make up, and he dives into the tackle, and Zola's shot just takes a little deflection off Campbell's toe and into the gap where Walker just his arm isn't good enough to get there. It's quite a big gap he leaves as well.
I think people at the time would have rather blamed Sol Campbell because he's a young player with the whole career ahead of him, where Stuart Pearce is like, he's still good, man. He's our man.
Well, he's
I'm not saying he's not still good, but like
he'd have been in his mid-30s about now, I think. But I think because he's even played for England, that's like quite old, really, international level. But you'd say Stuart Pearce, Mr. Reliable, never does anything. Well, it wasn't Pearce's fault, clearly. Like, it's this young lad next to him.
Yeah, and the fans want a player like Stuart Pearce in there who's just a nutter and just kind of seems like somebody you'd meet there in the pub.
Yeah, definitely.
Back to the game then. And finally, actually, England do have a chance to level it up.
Pierce, Batti, mette al centro, esce Peruzzi e la palla è fuori. Poteva costar cara questa indecisione di Peruzzi sul colpo di testa di Letizier.
Quando l'ho visto partire ho visto subito che era completamente fuori tempo, ma ormai lui non poteva più ritornare indietro, ha dovuto...
Close from Letizier.
You know what that was, don't you? Magnets. Magnets just pulling the ball away from the goal because Matt Letizier was going to score it.
Oh, it's the only thing I can think of that happened. It's Magnet's fault.
Yeah, exactly. Close. A close chance for Matt Letizier. The ball is floated into box by David Batty. Letiz jumps above his man. Peruzzi runs out, gets nowhere near it, but the header is just wide with the net wide open. Glenn Hoddle is wincing in the crowd, isn't he?
It's such a wince. We'll definitely put that up on the socials, that one. But it's just like such a grim, like he's almost smiling because he thinks he's scored. But at the same time, he knows he's missed and he can't like correct the smile. It's kind of like Jack Nicholson's Joker. Like it's just etched on his face.
That's a very good shout, actually. That was his chance, right?
Yeah, that was his chance, and it's been a half of nearly to Letizier. His set pieces are all right without being undefendable. He gets into a lot of situations where he's like nearly controls the ball, nearly gets a shot away, but his game just seems a little bit off, and maybe just wasn't fit enough for the game. And by fit enough, I mean like international level footballer fit.
Yeah, I agree.
Because he's always seemed as a player who he never really trained a lot and all that, and being young and so talented, he got away with it, but. This is a step up here. You can't imagine Italy playing one of their players that you see on the pitch here in the same condition Matt Letizier is in.
Definitely not. I think it is just an ego pick from Hoddle,
Yeah.
trying to be smart. I mean, we always want what we can't have as football fans. Some players are probably just better in the imagination, like Matt Letizia for England. You know, it's I may have mentioned it before, but on in the world of kind of UFC Twitter, there's a meme about like, oh, so and so's good, but would he beat motivated McGregor? You know, because it's like after he's lost a couple of fights, you start to make up excuses. Oh, he wasn't motivated. Here's a video of him when he was motivated. This guy's
Yeah.
unbeatable. And you're like, it's the same bloke.
Yeah.
The motivation's up to him, but it's just like, oh, but imagine Letizia at international level.
Like motivated's not his problem. Like
Yeah.
it's not his fault he's not motivated.
Yeah, and it's like, if he was good enough, he probably would have played
Yeah.
more. Letizia, he probably would have played at Euro 96.
Yeah, and if he'd been good enough and have probably kept himself in good condition as well, maybe there was a thing with Venables there, and this was seen as, all right, new start. You'd think, he's got a lot of the season to go. Hoddle is going to want me in good condition if he's had a word with me and plays me, but he's just like, I'll just keep on the Big Macs.
Yeah, and it's that thing though of, well, he wants me for what I am,
Yeah.
and that is just all encompassing. Am I going to lose? Am I going to lose something? You know?
Yeah, I'm not going to change what I've done because that's what's got me to the dance here now. But it's
Exactly.
kind of like, well, when it's your fitness, it's not like he's asking you to play left back, is it?
Yeah, of course. And that's the half.
Yeah.
Frustrating.
Yeah, frustrating half for England. They've not made loads of chances, but Italy themselves have only created like one real good chance. And it kind of sums up Letizier's half as well. Almost there, not quite frustrating. Things just haven't come off yet.
I feel like England have been at their absolute best, and Italy have been at like 60-70% of their best.
Yeah, Italy could go up a gear, you'd imagine, in this game. And England are like, they're very frantic at this point.
Yeah.
But you think there's just maybe not a bit of care with it along. There's just a lot of bluster instead.
Definitely. We're back into the second half. England start to ramp up the pressure after half time, and they get a lot of crosses in.
Yeah, and we kind of like their opportunities, which makes a crowd gasp and groan or without actually being good opportunities. So you kind of like see a ball comes in and an Italian like defender will clear it right off the post and you just hear, oh.
Yeah.
Like it's a lot of those which will never show up on like an XG stat.
I think it was,
But
true.
when you're at a game, it's just like, oh, that was close, that was.
I think from what I've seen, it's a lot of football around this era is that. Just like the ball's crossed into the box. Oh, that was a chance.
Yeah.
It's like, was it a chance though?
He's just headed it away.
Yeah.
Like he had nobody near him and he's kicked that away.
Which is why Shearer's probably such a good striker with such a great record. He would fight for all of those in the box, wouldn't he? And he's such a strong player.
You're going in the goal as well as the ball.
Absolutely, yeah. The quality of the game remains high, and it remains quite stretched as well. As you mentioned earlier, it's almost like extra time. But Italy remain a step ahead, and it feels like they could just strike on the break.
Yeah, definitely. McManaman we've not really mentioned yet as well. He seems to drift through the game quite a lot. He doesn't really get the chance to run at Italy out wide, and he's kind of crowded out when he comes into the middle as well. So you're like, where's McManaman actually playing? Like, actually, him and Letizia are kind of taking up like opposite positions either side of Shearer throughout, and it doesn't really work for me. You see Beckham out wide actually get more success dribbling at the players. Maybe that's where McManaman should have been. I think he played bits of there for, like, I think Venables played a back 4-3-5 as well. Maybe that's where he would have been at his best, and maybe playing him in that number 10 role isn't really where he should have been.
Yeah, there's something not quite right, is there, with England in this game, and the one thing you can say definitely is there's no lack of effort or willingness, to try and take the game to Italy. But surprisingly, there's kind of a lack of quality.
Yeah, which you wouldn't think when you looked at that first lineup, and you also really miss Gaz's creativity in this as well. Maybe that was Hoddle's plan, and when he's not available, you just think, okay, who's the next one? And maybe that's a reason that Letizia plays as well, because someone that can just make something out of nothing and just think, actually, he's the person who's going to provide that spark. But as we've said, doesn't really work out for him.
It's a good tactic, isn't it? Let's get someone on who can make something out of nothing.
Yeah.
That's it. What are we hoping for? Nothing.
Yeah, I've got no plan. He's just going to do it.
And the plan is over because he's dragged off.
Yeah. It doesn't work, does it? He comes off for Les Ferdinand. Two incredibly different players.
What's the plan now? Les Ferdinand.
Yeah, we'd seen that the gamble hasn't paid off for Hoddle with Letizia, a few chances. And you'd say maybe if he was going to be brave in a different way. Maybe Merson would have been the player, you know, a bit younger. I think he probably had his fitness issues around this time as well, Merson. I think he's
Probably.
yeah, most likely. Again, he's in that Gaza camp. But amazing, like the three most creative players in England, like who are English, are all just like, nah,
Yeah.
just like, nah, I don't really fancy it if I'm honest.
They're all a bit out of shape.
But you look at Shearer, who'd always kept himself in good nick. Players like all the defence as well. Stuart Pearce, I imagine he just went days without eating at times.
Yeah.
You know, Paul Ince, who moved to Italy, so he conditioned himself. David Batty, again, he probably just lived on pints and pies, but was still just one of those, you know, those people who just ripped no matter what.
Yeah.
I imagine David Batty's kind of an old man ripped already. But yeah, they're the ones that you just think maybe Merson could have been the one who played instead for a creative player.
I found an article written by Mike Rowbottom for the Independent, specifically on Letizier's performance. I think it was just called something like he's kind of blowing it on his big night, which is a bit harsh or what have you. But it said that Letizier had the demeanour of a man who had just staggered in, exhausted from a mountainside during this game. I don't know what that means. Has he been for a ramble?
I think he's been for a big ramble, if I'm honest. And it's just like, you know, when you see like pictures of people who get in, you know, like in The Simpsons where they go to like the ice place, like on the mountain.
Yeah.
And they all get to that thing and they're just like, oh, get me a drink or whatever. Like that's Letizier. He's come off and it's like, pot of mild.
Yeah, yeah. Cheers, Gaffer. Anyway, I'll see you later. Let me know how you get on. You got to wonder why Ian Wright didn't start ahead of Letizia. I know he's not even brought him on. He's brought Ferdinand on, but come on.
A bit of energy as well, a bit of running, creating a nuisance as well. And, you know, I guess we are screaming out for a bit more of put your foot on the ball and pick something out. Again, there's just millions of crosses coming in. Maybe that's a bit of a blind alley for England because they've got three centre-halves in the Italy team who are just picking everything off. And, you know, no Sheringham in the squad today, or at least he's not on the bench. Seemingly fit as he played at the weekend as well. I looked into it too. So Sheringham was that kind of player, actually, where you think, well, he is a bit of a smarter player too.
Yeah, my God.
Sheringham, he doesn't play over...
Shearer up top
Yeah.
with Sheringham, Merson and Letizier behind him.
I mean, well, that's four. That is a big diamond up front, isn't it?
Yeah, that'd be great.
But like there's options there. You think we're like, we wonder why Sheringham didn't play them, but strange.
Maybe a personality thing?
Yeah, maybe. Well, I think there's a famous story. I don't know if you know it, of Teddy Sheringham and Glenn Hoddle.
No.
So basically, when he was a kid, obviously Teddy Sheringham was a Spurs fan, and Hoddle played for Spurs. And he kind of grew up, and he was like, he met him a couple of times, and he was like, oh, amazing! You see him, and you go, what a player, and then you meet him, and you go, what a cunt. So they didn't get on at all. So maybe this is him still going, nah, Teddy, you're too old, but this older bloke I'm going to bring in, Ian Wright, instead. And yeah, it becomes a really physical game at this point as well. Just lots of shots and crosses. Italian body is just everywhere and nothing lands for England. Italy are defending incredibly well. Like, they just snuff out any chance.
This is not the same England that beat Italy at Le Tournoi. I guess it's not the same Italy, but like that falls in between this and the second.
It does, yes.
Yeah. And
there's just something more about them. There's more bite. Maybe it's what they kind of talked about.
Maybe skulls.
Maybe, yeah, it's missing players, isn't it? Which is, we'll get onto that, but there's like, maybe they're just missing something. But I really enjoy the Italian commentators at this point when they're like, someone makes a clearance, they go, bravo, Cannavaro. Like, they're so behind them with another tackle. And then we get the introduction of Ravanelli off the bench, and the commentator says, Fabrizio Ravanelli, Silver Fox. Like, okay, that translates, does it? Brilliant.
Yeah, it does, it does. McManaman, he's brought off for Merson. He'd started to look dangerous just before coming off, but his time was up, really. He hadn't really made much of his appearance and his chance to outshine Gascoigne.
No, not much, really.
Thanks, Steve. I was looking forward to watching you, but you let me down.
Well, amazingly, I think this is McManaman's last competitive start under Hoddle. So that's properly, you're in the bin now, that is, isn't it?
Yeah. Jesus.
Just let him. Again, this is like, you think about him, he's gambling on this, but if you let him down, you're gone. I mean, for McManaman to never start a competitive game under Hoddle again is massive.
I was really looking forward to revisiting Hoddle.
Yeah. Now look at him.
It's like, oh, it's just the same as all the other eras, isn't it?
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? I'd noticed at this point, the English crowd are calling the referee a wanker.
Yeah.
And I know that's not the maddest thing in the world, but it just stood out to me a couple of times that you just kept hearing it. And I was like, I heard an English song or the crowd sing something. I was like, oh, God, this isn't going to be like anti-Italian, is it, that they're all singing? But no, it's just that the referee, wherever he's from, wouldn't say he's really done much wrong up to this point. There's one foul on Ferdinand, which seems pretty harsh, but referee doesn't really do much. He does get massively in the way of a David Batty at one point, and David Batty pretty much has to push him out of the way so he can pass the ball.
Yeah, that is a bit harsh on the referee, but I think England fans are probably quite bored at seeing all of these crosses going in with nobody getting on the end of them.
Yeah.
One fan in particular is very bored and decides it's his turn to run on the pitch.
Idiot.
Idiot. We don't like to see that.
Well, we like to see it when they keep the cameras on it, and we get to see 4 men carrying him off the pitch, which actually I did really like that bit.
God, he's going to get the shit kicked out of him.
I don't like it when these days are like, well, there's something going on the pitch where there's some idiot has decided to come in and we're not going to show you the satisfaction. And it's just like, well, don't mention it then. Like, oh, this is a fun thing you could be seeing here. And it's like, well, no.
It has to be mentioned.
But really, they're just like, what you just go, probably now, you could just probably go, anyway, on BT tonight, there's this 19 games that are on, and then it's the wrestling's on later. And so there's other stuff they could probably advertise in that point as
They
well.
could have put an advert on.
Well, learn from the Italians.
Yeah, exactly.
Get your Hitler adverts in now.
England get a free kick. It's all going on now.
Sempre pericolosi. 36esimo, palla al centro, svetta Costa Curta. Siamo tutti ai limiti dell'area di rigore. Ora Neville. Pallone pericoloso, Shearer, attenzione, Merson, Peruzzi e poi il pallone che termina fuori per l'intervento di Ferdinand. Non è calcio d'angolo.
Ferdinand è riuscito a sbagliare. Campbell sì, è riuscito a sbagliare questo gol perché non era difficilissimo. Per me, guardate, la posizione è ottima. Qui ha fatto una specie di rinvio come...
Oh, a glorious chance.
Glorious.
Sol Campbell.
Oh, Sol, this is a Sol one, isn't it? Oh my God.
Get used to this, mate.
I know, yeah. A Beckham free kick headed away, and Gary Neville on the halfway line sends a great ball into the box. Shearer wins the knock-on for Merson on the left-hand side of the area, and it seems to take an age for the ball to fall properly to his foot. Merson manages to get it into the 6-yard box, right in front of goal. There's an England body in there. Somehow it goes over from 3 yards out.
Yeah. It's you say somehow it looked like great defending to me, but it's given us a goal kick.
Yeah, I didn't really get this. This is kind of where the accumulation of little things is getting the crowd on the referee's back, and it's Sol Campbell who's in there. I didn't think he got a touch on it, or not the final touch, because either it's come off the defender cleanly, or Campbell is so close to the goal he's knocked it on the defender. Like, I don't see how he made the ball go over the bar from there.
No, as I say, I thought it was great defending.
Yeah,
but it's just not going to happen, is it?
No, it doesn't feel like it. No, and there's little chances late on. Like we say, he's had a great game. Or kind of another reminder of what a fantastic and talented player he was, not just being kind of like all bluster and whatever and hard. He kind of strides through the midfield, and there's a save that comes from Peruzzi, and the crowd just are hanging from the rafters at this point. They do feel like there is something coming. But the Italian bodies are just all over the place. It's like Platoon, and it's just everyone's on the floor kicking things away, anything possible.
It's a good shot from Ince. Hit it very hard.
Oh, yeah. He punched it almost, didn't he?
Not long left now, and finally Hoddle calls for Ian Wright. Can he make an instant impact?
Costretto a rincorrere. Sandor Pool. Fischia alla fine. L'Italia espugna per la seconda volta a Wembley. Batte gli inglesi per 1-0. Straordinario, io direi, risultato per l'Italia con Gianfranco Zola in gol al 20° minuto del primo tempo. Vedete, tifosi italiani, subito un vostro parere. Gianluca.
È una vittoria all'italiana, nel senso che abbiamo ottenuto il massimo, abbiamo sofferto un po' nel secondo tempo, ma abbiamo dimostrato delle qualità difensive incredibili, e direi che probabilmente una vittoria meritata.
Roberto.
Sì, anch'io penso, abbiamo sofferto nel secondo tempo, però alla fine poi
Nah, not so much.
Nah. It's done.
Yeah, we're there. That's the end of it. It's the first game gone of this two-headed game we're going to do.
Yeah, frustrating one for England. Wembley as well. You would have hoped the crowd could have just lifted a goal and sucked the ball into the net, as they say, but was no dice.
Yeah, this would go down as England's first loss at home in a World Cup setting. So for the first time they've lost a game at Wembley during a World Cup or for a World Cup qualifier.
That's interesting.
That is
isn't it?
massive. It took till 1997 for England to lose a World Cup qualifier at home.
And Italy have the momentum in the group now. They go above England only on goal difference, but with a game in hand, which I'm sure they'll take care of.
Yeah. Well, they really celebrate a lot at the end, don't they, as well? All the players kind of run over to the fans, and Maldini's there as well. That's kind of the end of the game. We look a little bit into the aftermath because we're going to pick up almost straight from here next week. But the FA weren't happy with Matt Letizia and his brother leaking leaking the England team beforehand, with a source from the FA saying, "What an idiot." This would be Letizia's final cap for England.
Yeah. Well, you deserve it.
Really. I mean, and as well, you kind of look at Letitia's record for Southampton after this as well, and you do start to see where he is kind of as a player too. In 96-97, he finishes this season with 13 goals, no assists. Then the next season, 11 goals, 9 assists. So still really respectable. But then from 98 to 2002, he only scores 10 goals. So you can see where the decline is starting to come for Letizia from this point.
10 goals a season for those years.
That's 10 goals altogether across 4 years. I think he scores the last goal at the Dell against Arsenal in the last minute, and that's his only goal of the season. So a great moment for him, but
And a great player, really.
Oh, incredibly so. Yeah.
But don't get your brother to leak the England team.
Don't be such a knobhead all the time.
Um,
That's why you're not on Sky anymore, mate.
I was surprised but pleased when they played Matthew Letizia. That's not a compliment, is it? Somebody like Ian Wright would have made it far more difficult for me. Luckily, Wright is bottom of coach Glenn Hoddle's list.
What a weird thing to say. He's bottom of the list.
Mind your own business.
Yeah, you've already won. Just don't go, oh, well, look at the idiots they played out there.
Zola also chimed in with, if they played Ferdinand from the start, it would have given us more problems.
Make your minds up.
I know, yeah, but why don't you just play them all?
Yeah, exactly.
Next time, don't play any defence. Manager Maldini wasn't impressed with the leaks coming out of the England camp. Again, mind your own.
Yeah.
Yeah. And thought they were double bluffs from England's management. His quote was, "Such ploys went out of fashion in Italy 15 to 20 years ago. These days, in every corner of the world, there is a TV set, and we all know the English players, their defects and their capabilities."
What is he going on about there? Oh, we all know the English game. Okay.
Yeah.
And what, you pick the team, do you?
Well, the bloody Italy team want to pick the England team, but you can't.
But again, like 15, 20 years ago, we used to do this back in the 70s and it wasn't cool then either.
Yeah, we used to fix games all years ago. So, because it's a two-parter, we'll save judgment on whether this has been England until the next time. So join us then, when we'll be covering the return game between the two sides, with England needing to go to Rome and get something, or have to face the dreaded playoffs. Nick, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, mate. See you next time.
You may be a stranger, that's what time can do.